Hello guys, and welcome back to another chess video. Today I have an interesting chess video, and this is actually a different type of game. This is kind of a situation where computers can't exactly evaluate who's winning and who's not, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So this is a game between Lev Psakhis and Vasily Smyslov. Now, for context, this was played in 1993 in Rostov-on-Don. So at this point, Vasily Smyslov is, I believe, well into the 70s. He's a very, very old person. Lev Psakhis, he was an emerging grandmaster from the Soviet Union, and he was a very strong player. So let's see how this game goes. Psakhis starts off with e4. We have e5, and we enter the Ruy Lopez. g6, d4. So this is Smyslov's own little variation against it. We have some taking, and now bishop g5, already putting a question to the queen. Smyslov blocks, takes, and we have a bunch of exchanges. Knight f6, knight c3, bishop g4, and now knight d2, preventing black from doubling these the kingside pawns. So we have Smyslov castling, and now h3. Bishop e6, and now queenside castles. Rook on f to d8, queen e3, and now b5. So it's quite clear Smyslov wants to go for this b4, maybe kick the knight out, maybe even go for an a5, a4, and start breaking up the queenside pawn protection. So we have f4 in response, so maybe Psakhis can get an f5 in, maybe a g4 in. It's a very common strategy when you castle on opposite sides, that black will play like this, and then white will play like this, going after each other's kings. So, okay, knight d7, knight f3, and now b4. Knight to a4, and now Smyslov plays knight to b6. Now, depending on which engine you use, knight b6 is either just an equalizing move or a really bad move. What the Lichess engine would suggest is bishop to c4. And the idea is you're going to eventually play c5 and a5, and you're just going to stomp white out. For example, if let's say we play rook on h to e1, maybe you play c5. Let's say white goes for g4 and bishop b5. And yeah, the position gets complicated. You gotta take this, bishop takes, and then now you can escape with your knight. But all in all, this is a relatively equal position. Yes, white is down the exchange, but he has a pawn for it, and plus he's got this very nice kingside pawn mess coming towards black. But okay, knight b6, and now rook takes d8, and now knight e5. And so Smyslov sort of has a problem. This knight c6 is a very annoying move, and the rook and the queen are about to get forked, and it's a very difficult position. So Smyslov takes, knight takes e6, and queen e8. Takes, queen takes a7. So Psakhis is now up a pawn. Knight b6, rook d8, queen here, and now queen to a5. Knight to c4. Here, the suggested move is h5. The idea is that we want to stop g4 because white's going to play g4. You already have this h3 pawn here, so white wants to play g4 and completely open the king's side. But okay, you have knight to c4. That's all right as well. Queen a8, king here, and now queen d8, forcing a queen trade after queen d4. Takes, and now c5. So in this position, after, let's say, rook to d3, in this position, white is up a pawn. But is white winning is the question. Now, again, it depends on what engine. If you go onto Lichess, white is about +1, +1.5. If you use the chess.com one, it's +0.6, +0.7. So it's debatable if white's winning. Uh, Certainly, the reason is, yes, white is up a pawn, but he is down the exchange. Black has 2 minor pieces, while white has the 1 rook. And generally, um, if there was no material imbalance, white would be worse. But given the fact that white has 2 more pawns than black, it's a tough call. Okay, so we have h5 now, b3, knight b6, and now rook d6, knight d7, and now king d2. So at this point, black is sort of tied down. There isn't a good square to put this knight. You could put it here, because you could put it here, you could probably put it on f6, but those don't really do that much. I mean, if you play, let's say, knight f6, this pawn is hanging, so maybe something like rook here is possible. Or first, yeah, definitely you want to play this first. Simply just guard it. And there's not really that much for black to do. But yeah, after king d2, black's position is very hard to play. It's white with the winning chances. Even though this position is probably more or less equal, white has the chances because white has more pawns, and black's pieces are like this, kind of stuck. Alright, we have king f8, king e3, king e7, now rook c6, so, put a little bit of pressure on the c pawn. h4, and now king f2. Knight f6, king e3, knight d7. It's interesting to note that in this position, if you go on to Lichess, it will say that white has a +2 advantage. Like, +2 advantage. The lines they give, however, are all repetition moves. It's basically just the king going like this, going in the square, because of this constant knight f6 threat. Just going back and forth and attacking this e4 pawn. But okay, rook c8, and now this is pretty much a dead draw. f5, rook h8. Knight f6, takes, and you can see why. Yes, white still has the same material advantage, but the difference is quite big. One, black has this very nice centralized knight. He's just stopping everything. There's really no way to advance these queenside pawns easily, and the kingside pawns can't really advance as well because this king is very close. So even if you manage to get these pawns up, your king can probably stop it. Probably. On top of that, we see that, even though this position, white does in fact still have the winning chances. It's just that the centralized knight and these very advanced pawns are stopping pretty much all the play for white. No chances of advancing. But okay, let's see what white can do. Rook h8, knight c3, rook a8, and now bishop d5. So nicely centralizing the bishop, attacking this rook, attacking the pawn g2. Everything is nice. Rook a7, king e6, rook a6, king f7. Again, you want to stay near these pawns because if these pawns fall, then this pawn can start going. So, okay, g3. Bishop g2, and now h4. Bishop h3, and now a4. En passant, because we can't allow pawns to simply walk up like that. Rook takes, and now bishop g4. Check, and then we have rook c6. So this pawn's under attack. Knight e4, and now c3. Knight takes, rook takes, knight e4. So, okay, what has come out of this? Well, white, again, has the winning chances because white now has this nice b pawn, and it looks like it's pretty unstoppable. If black wanted to stop, if Vasily Smyslov wants to stop white from having a queen, he would have to give up one of these minor pieces, either the knight or the bishop. It's just very likely. It's very unlikely this king will be able to just come over here, given that he has to guard these pawns over here. So, okay. Rook c6, bishop here. So, Smyslov first starts assaulting the pawns. On a light square, you may as well attack it. This gains a nice tempo, and now bishop a4. Rook a6, bishop b5. Okay, so we have rook b6, bishop b7, king d4, knight takes g3. This pawn was undefended, you might as well take it. Alright, we have b5, and now Smyslov gives up the bishop. Why does he give up the bishop now? Why didn't he do it later? You'll see that after takes, king g7, king e5, and now knight h5, black has sort of set up a fortress. Okay, Psakhis is now up more material than before. Now he's up 2 points in material, but he's got some issues. One, this pawn is never going to advance. This pawn's probably never going to be a passed pawn. And on top of that, you can't really checkmate the black king. There's no real way of actually entering this position. Of course, Psakhis tries because he has the winning chances, but there's nothing. There's simply nothing. Knight g3, knight h5. The knight sword just goes back and forth, and the game ends in a draw. So yeah, this is the game Psakhis versus Smyslov. Obviously, it's not. This game wasn't the kind of flashy sacrifices or anything, but it's interesting to note that, you know, comparatively speaking, I think a lesson we can take away from this is that for a lot of our games, we're probably going to be in a losing position like Smyslov. So the question is how do you approach it? I think the best way we can say that Smyslov approached it is simply playing the right moves and playing towards one thing, and that is the center. And it's very interesting. This game is unique in that the end game is the most complicated part for the computer. It's not the middle game. Usually it's the middle game, you know, with all the sacrifices that end up happening with every single piece hanging on the board. But it is the end game because of some very complicated material piece imbalance. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy this video. Thanks and goodbye.